welcome to the programme. I'm Chris Stafford, and my guest today is 23-year-old professional footballer Megan Campbell. An Ireland international and Manchester City defender, she spent 3 years at Florida State University, where she experienced very different conditions for women playing professional sports. Last week, she stood beside her teammates who challenged Ireland's governing body to provide basic remuneration and resources to its national squad, so they no longer had to share team kit such as a tracksuit or get changed in public restrooms. Their campaign to stand their ground for equality comes at a time which saw the US soccer team and the US ice hockey team win their battles for better pay and conditions to gain more recognition for their commitment and contribution to their national team. Megan grew up in County Louth and she previously played for St Francis and Raheny United. In 2010, she was a member of the Republic of Ireland under-17 squad that were runners-up at the 2010 UEFA Women's Under-17 Championship and quarter-finalists at the 2010 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Megan was signed up by Manchester City in February 2016 and is currently rehabbing from an ankle injury at their football academy, from where she joins me now. Megan, welcome to the programme.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You've really made the news headlines these days. I mean, we were going to talk about all the different teams that you've been playing for, but we'll start off, Megan, by talking about what made the news last week, because we've shown that there's inequality in so many different sports, and you had to stand your ground for what you were not getting with a national squad as well, your own Irish team there, and the inequalities that you've been subjected to. But you won through. So tell us how that came about, Megan, in the first place, and why you decided now was the right time to stand your ground.
Unfortunately, I don't think any one of us would have wanted to have it to come to that point. I just want to say that at the start, because obviously at the end of the day, you want to play football, you want to represent your country. But we felt that it was time that I think we took a stand and we were united together and we were all for it, because I think over the last 6 to 10 years and even more than that, I just think the inequality shown throughout the women's team in comparison to the men's first team was just lacking quite a bit. I think as it progressed, it just got worse and worse for us, and to a point where I think we were talking about it last week. I think a lot of us just felt it as the norm to be accepting of what the circumstances we were in and what we were given, and the lack of what we were given, I guess. And I think it was just it became the norm to us, and finally we've stood up and we've sat back and we've looked at it and again, and I think we all decided that enough is enough and we deserve more than this, and if we're going to go far and finally make that major tournament for the first time, I think you need the funding and you need the resources, and so we want to do that as a team, and we want to do that with the best resources at our disposal.
Well, let's just set it in context, Megan, because, you guys are expected to play on a professional team, right? But a lot of the girls were working, right? And yet you weren't getting any financial support, not even basic support there. And you were subjected to, really second-class citizen conditions, if you like, having to change in the bathrooms and not even getting your own kit. Talk about some of those things that actually impacted you, and financially how it impacts those girls by not getting even a basic salary or covering your expenses as well. I mean, talk about what you had and what you didn't have.
Yeah, well, I think for me personally, I'm kind of lucky in the sense there's a few of us that are on professional contracts. So when we were to go into national camp, we would be covered by obviously that money. But there were, like you said, there were players, and there still are players who are part-time teachers or part-time, working within Microsoft and working within just like some girls had to leave their jobs as being teachers to join other jobs because the workload was too stressful and they weren't able to get time off. And then losing out on money, it came to some of the girls were losing out of up to 40 days pay because they had to take unpaid leave in order to go on these camps, which weren't obviously refunded by the FAI. And then instead of taking unpaid leave, the girls would then use it as their holidays so that they would still be paid and wouldn't lose out on some money. But then in the long run, they're losing out on holidays anyway. So it's like they're working year round. So it was just quite unfortunate and sad to see that girls were just having to, choose between their jobs and the national team. And it should never have had to come to that, where some girls had unfortunately had to drop out and choose work life over playing for your country.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. That if they got disillusioned, some of them, and felt, they simply could not afford to play, keep a job and actually give up time to play for a national squad. I mean, that's a huge sacrifice and decision to make when you're a keen player, and you want to represent your country, Megan.
Yeah, definitely. I think no one didn't want to play for their country, and everyone wanted it to be a successful time. And I think it was just quite unfortunate the way it worked out. But luckily enough, with the support we had behind us of the PFAI and SIP2, they worked behind closed doors non-stop for us. And I think when we all came together on that Monday morning, I think, we were all just real positive about the outcome that was going to come of this situation. And thankfully it was positive.
Well, it was, as you say, you got the support of the Professional Footballers Association of Ireland against the Football Association of Ireland. What is their attitude towards you now, though? I mean, has it shifted? Do you feel that by you standing your ground that you're getting the respect that you need, and you're going to be setting the scene, really, now for future generations coming into the sport in Ireland?
Yeah, definitely. I think to show that we were united as a group and that we weren't going to step down and succumb to what they were offering us or the little that they were giving us at the time. I think to show that we're united, as I said again, and just, we're powerful, strong women, and we're not going to stand down on just the likes of those people who think they have the money and not give us the availability of those resources. And so it was quite good to stand there, and, I felt quite empowered. And I think to every female in Ireland, it wasn't just within the soccer community, it was just women's football, women in general in Ireland. It was just to look at that and go, you know what, like, we can do it too. And I think it quite empowered the whole country, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I mean, it had a ripple effect across women in sport generally. And, I think people are proving now how, if you stand your ground, that you can achieve the results that you need in order to have a professional career as you need, Megan. Hopefully we won't be losing good players to the sport. So explain what it is you came away from that meeting with. What do you actually now have as a guarantee for women who are playing for the national team?
Well, as far as I'm aware, the women's team and the FAI have agreed that we will now get paid for playing in competition games. There'll be a bonus if you win the game. There'll be another amount of money if you draw the game. And then obviously if you make it to the final tournaments, which we hope to do in the near future, that there will be a bonus package with that. The little things that come alongside that would be you get a tracksuit and you're able to keep your gear, because unfortunately that wasn't the case for us for quite a long time. So I think a lot of us are quite happy with that, even though it's such a small aspect. It's so big to us. I think just little things like more training sessions, home-based training sessions for the girls who, unlike us, haven't got the availability of the strength and conditioning coach or the nutritionist or the access to a full gym. So I think they've brought all that in for the home-based players, which is thankfully great to see. And we'll hope in the near future that you'll see the success of that program and those availabilities being brought out onto the pitch.
And that, of course, is in stark contrast to what you experienced when you played in Florida there. You won that scholarship and spent 3 years over here in Florida playing for the Seminoles there. And that was a very, very different culture, obviously, for you. But the way that women are treated in the sport and in sport generally, to some extent, we mustn't overlook what just happened with the ice hockey team, the national ice hockey team, and with soccer over here too. But at the college level, it's a very different experience, and it opened your eyes to the possibilities for women while you were here. And talk a little bit about those experiences that you had and the impact that it had on you as a professional player.
Yeah, I think being at Florida State, for one, was just absolutely amazing. I don't think I'd ever seen anything like it in the world until I've gone to there and on a visit to see if I wanted to actually attend the college. And as soon as I stepped foot on campus, I said, that's it for me. Like, I definitely have to go there and experience it. I think working with Mark Corey and then all the staff behind the scenes, and then all the players, obviously playing with international players, and then being open to the American culture and playing with those type of players, I think it just brought great success to us. And I think I was quite lucky in the sense where we won the ACC 3 years in a row, regular season, and then eventually won the national championship. And I think it was just great to see that the passion and I guess drive that college had given to women's football. Like, it wasn't just putting the men's football program, it wasn't just men's baseball, which would be the main sports within that country. I think to see women's soccer just being on the up, and the school and all the fans and the amount of all the crowd you would get at every game to show that passion, and just I think it just passed from fans onto the pitch to the players, and we were lucky enough to have that.
Well, clearly, as you said, you experienced the crowds. Even a midweek crowd is a lot different to what you had at home, where you grew up just north of Dublin. That was a big shift for you, going from Drogheda, South Louth to Florida, in terms of the cultural shock alone, though. But did people tell you that you're going to be treated very differently, that this is, no pun intended, a whole different ball game when you're playing college sports over here?
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously it's like a job, isn't it? You're full time, you're training every day, you've a game, like you said, twice a week, sometimes midweek, during the day in the dead heat in Florida. And so it did take its toll on me at the start, and with jet lag and being away from home and family and stuff, it was tough to start off with. But I think when you're in around that culture, you cannot not thrive on that success of the college, and every other sport just backing each other, and then just normal students in general, not even athletes, seeing how you're doing every day. You're going into classes that you don't even know these people, and they're like, congratulations on your win. And I think everyone was just so united, and it was like a huge community within one college, which I think for me was just overwhelming.
And as you said, you won lots of important tournaments there, and including you were the first Irish woman to play on an NCAA winning team. That must be something to put in your career highlights, I would imagine, because you're making history there for Irish women in football by doing this. Megan, what does that all mean to you in your career?
I think it was obviously an unbelievable achievement for me to say that I was the first ever Irish player to have that success. But I think it shows that anybody could do it, and you don't have to be from that country, because obviously a lot of colleges now recruit internationals, and they're seeing the talent overseas, and you don't want the girls to have to leave their home country where there's a league and stuff, but the facilities and the league itself wasn't good enough for players. And so for me, I had to make a choice. If I want to go professional at the end of this, I need to make a choice, and I need to go to where it best suits me in order for me to thrive and grow as a player and get better and better. And so I chose to go to the States, and I think from that experience and speaking to other Irish girls who are younger than me and even at similar age, I think some of them regret not choosing to go on scholarships, and then others are trying to get my thoughts on what college do you reckon is good, and do you think it's a good thing if I do go, and stuff like that. And I think when I was over there in my second last year, I had spoke to Megan Connolly and said, you know what, if you've any thought at all about coming over to America, I said you need to do it, because this college and these players and this environment, I said, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you're not going to get it anywhere else and ever again. And so thankfully Megan Connolly then joined us over in Florida State, and she's over there now doing very well and being very successful.
How did that scholarship come about, Megan?
I was playing with national team, I think, under 15s, 17s, 19s, and I guess Mark Krikorian had seen me play throughout video analysis and stuff, and he had asked me if I wanted to go previously a year to when I graduated from school in Ireland, but I didn't think I was quite mature yet or ready to leave family, so I said I didn't want to go. And then I stayed 2 more years in Ireland and did 2 years college, and then he called me back and said, are you still interested? Pardon me. And I think at that stage I thought, you know what, I think if I don't go, I'm going to regret it. So I went over on the official visit in the April. And I think, like I said, once I stepped on campus, that was it for me. I said I have to come here and I have to experience it. So that following August, then I joined Florida State.
So, what were your biggest takeaways then, Megan, as a professional player, and how this has set you up? Obviously to get the contract there with Manchester City. I mean, it really has been a turning point in your career, hasn't it? Spending those 3 years at Florida State. Talk about what you took away most from there in terms of your player experiences and as an athlete too.
I think for me, when I went over there, I was an athlete, but I wasn't at the highest point that I knew I could be. So in terms of nutrition, in terms of strength and conditioning, and when I was over there, I got injured and I had a long-term injury where I had to have surgery on my ankle. But I think to see the support and the people behind you to come back from that, and to show that the college were willing to put every resource that they had into you in order to get you back, I think that made my mentality grow as a player. And that's something that I'll always take away with me, is the mentality that those players have over there to just keep going and be ruthless and never stop. And it's something that I brought into my game back here in Ireland, and then obviously in Manchester City. I think to just have that never say die attitude.
And you mentioned earlier about what you don't have in terms of resources on the Irish team. But in the US, of course, on the college team, you would have experienced all of that. And it probably is very similar to what you're getting now with Manchester City. Just talk about those differences now, because you've been with Manchester City since, you signed, February 2016. So you've just had just over a year with Manchester City there. Talk about the facilities, the resources, and what it's like to be a professional player with them now, and what difference that is to what you've experienced before.
I think going from Florida State, where you have everything at your disposal, and the facilities are huge, and the staff and everything, like you said, there's numerous amount of people on your team and on your staff roster and stuff. And to go from that, then to leave there, unfortunately, and have to come away from that, but then to go professional and have Manchester City come and ask you to go and train with them and see if you like it and stuff like that. I think obviously I was taken back by that in itself, because the name Manchester City, just, you throw it out there, and it's a big club with a big obviously crest, and everybody knows it, and when I came here, I didn't think that I would get such good facilities like I did in Florida State. But I think in comparison to Florida State, Manchester City is like the equivalent of Florida State, but just zoned in on soccer for women, and obviously soccer for men too. But I think instead of Florida State having football, baseball, softball, and all these other sports, it just zones in on soccer. And so that for me is incredible to see the amount of money that they've put into this facility, and just to help the young players grow, and see all the academy players growing up the whole way through the age groups until you get to under 23s, and then eventually the first team. Obviously with Ireland, I didn't have that at my disposal at that age. Growing up, I played with boys all the way to under 14s until you couldn't no longer. And then eventually I've gone to under 16s, and then had to travel to Dublin to play football to have it at a better standard. And then, like I said, I travelled over to the States, because for me, if I wanted to take that next step to go to that next level, I needed to do something along those lines. But I also wanted to study and get my degree in college, in case anything seriously, touch wood, never does happen. But if my career ended up having to end, then I would have something to fall back on. And so that's why I chose to go to Florida State.
Yeah, very smart. Investing in your future as well, because we all know that eventually it's going to end, and you've got some coaching badges too. So you could either do what social science is your degree, isn't it? So you could try anything, Megan. What would be your preference? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think I've looked into doing a master's in social work, and I've also got a diploma from Ireland in sport and exercise, so I could carry that on. So I think there is a few different routes I could go down, but for now, I'm trying to just focus on my football and getting back fit and getting back out onto the pitch.
I'm sure. And you're probably in your dream job now, aren't you, Megan?
Yeah, definitely. I think for anybody who wants to play football, to be at this facility and this club, and just to be playing football on a daily basis, that's what you want to be doing. And so I'm obviously honoured to have been given this position.
Well, tell us what a typical day is like for you now, full-time professional, training, a couple of times a day? Give us an idea of what a week or a day looks like for you.
So for today, I woke up at about 8. I've gone downstairs. I've had breakfast at 8:30. And then by about 9:30, I was in the gym doing my pre-act. So that would consist of just warming up my muscles and getting everything ready for the day ahead. I then went into doing my rehab work for my ankles, followed by a circuit outside, which finished at about 12. So I've come inside, have lunch. You get lunch here and breakfast on site. So we had lunch at about 12:30, and by 1:30 I was back in the gym doing a leg session, which lasted until about, I'd say about 2:30, 3. So it's been quite a long day, and I think most days are like that for us as players. But it's something that you want to be doing as a footballer. You want to be in the gym, you want to be out on the pitch as much as you can. And so I think they just try and help that balance of when's enough. And obviously with games coming up and really important games coming up, like the FA Cup semi-final against Liverpool and the Champions League semi-final against probably what I would consider as, in the last few years, the best team in the world, Lyon, at club football. So it's going to be a tough test for us, but I think everything that they do off the pitch for us as players can't not help but put back onto the grass.
Well, for sure, it is perfect conditions there, isn't it, for you at the academy, as you say, training there every day for Manchester City. But and you mentioned the games coming up for your commitment there with Manchester City. But what about with Ireland?
Well, thankfully today, the girls had beaten Slovakia 1-0 in a good win at home in Tallaght Stadium in Dublin. I unfortunately wasn't there due to an ankle injury that I'm trying to get over at the minute. But I think over the next year, I think we have 3 friendlies lined up. And then obviously you have the World Cup qualifiers come September. So it was unfortunate to not make this major final tournament in the European Championships in Holland this summer. But I think with a new manager and a new squad and a new, I guess, methodology and a mental side to where we want to be, I think we're growing on it. And from Cyprus, where the girls had done really well, to now this win against Slovakia, I think we're growing as a team and we're going in the right direction.
Well, I would imagine what they've done, as you say, on the pitch is a boost to confidence, but off the pitch is a boost to the team morale as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone on and off the pitch is just delighted with where the game is going now for women in Ireland. And it's not just even with that full national team. I think it's for the girls who are going to come up to that position in the future. It wasn't necessarily for us as players at this moment in time. You know, it was for the future of women's football in Ireland. So we're just grateful that it's finally happened.
Well, I can't let you go without mentioning your famous throw-in, of course. You've become quite the star for your throwing. It's something that comes naturally to you, but it's proved a winning formula, isn't it, with your long throw-ins? I mean, I saw the video of your throw-ins against Germany there, just placing it so sweetly in front of the goal. And that's not something you actually train for. It's just a natural talent you have, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think I was fortunate enough to have this weird, if you would say, talent that I can throw the ball quite long. And since I think about the age of 14, I've noticed, this is abnormally long, and I don't think any other child can do it at the rate I was doing it. And so as I grew, it grew as well. And thankfully, it's a nice little weapon to have in the back pocket when needed. But obviously at Florida State, we used it a lot in terms of trying to get goals and stuff like that. Or getting yourself out of trouble in a defending situation. But I think here at Manchester City, I think the ideals of football here are slightly different, and we want to get the ball down the grass and play. Not like Florida State didn't, but I think that's not something that they will look to unless we're, really in need of a goal. So it's still nice to have.
Clear something up for me, Megan. How many steps are you allowed before you actually release the ball?
As many as you want.
Okay, I've heard various sides to this, so it's a universal rule. Then you can actually run up to the line. Then
yeah, you can do. Yeah, you don't have to. Obviously, if the ball is within the 18-yard line, you can't run to the halfway line and then sprint the whole way up and then throw the ball. But I think within I'd say within about 10, 15 steps, if even. I think
you don't even need that. You can just stand still and you'll reach the goal from wherever you are. What would you consider to be your top 3 career highlights?
So far, I think obviously my first international cap for my full national team for Ireland. I think playing in an NCAA final and winning that against Virginia 1-0 in 2014 with Florida State. And I think, what would be my third? Obviously, signing for Manchester City is a big thing, but I haven't been quite lucky in terms of injuries at the minute. So I would say probably playing in the 2010 World Cup for the under-17 women's Irish team and scoring a goal and getting to the quarter-finals was definitely a highlight for me.
And what do you most value about being involved in sport as a full-time professional?
I think there's nothing that you couldn't value. I think just to have everything at my disposal. I know there's players who aren't as lucky as I am in terms of what I get and the treatment I get on and off the pitch. And, just seeing new cultures and getting to travel around the world is an unbelievable experience in itself. But then to meet new players and to meet new people, make friendships for life, I guess.
For sure. So much to take away from the sport, Megan, and you've put so much into it as well. A wonderful role model. So thank you very much indeed for taking the time to come on the programme. The best of luck there at Manchester City and with the Irish squad now as you're paving the way for future generations of Irish players in the sport. Congratulations and the very best of luck.
Thank you.
And you can hear more on this topic of inequality in sports for women on our Locker Room Talk podcast with Sarah Gross and Kelly O'Mara. And if you'd like to join in the conversation, you can drop us a line at info@wispsports.com and also on our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. This podcast is available for download from the iTunes podcast store to any podcast app, so you can listen to the show wherever you are. Be sure to visit wispsports.com for more conversations from around the world of women's sports. We have over 600 podcasts, as well as articles, blogs and videos. Until the next time, thank you for listening.